I'd like to welcome everybody in the room to the June 6, 2016 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission and everybody watching on TV. I don't see TV up. Yeah, I did push the mic. There we go. First item on the agenda is a roll call. Member Vincent Laria. Yeah. Member Nick Malason. Yeah. Member Joseph Lavalley. Yeah. Member James Cerboni.
Here.
And I'm Andrew B. DeSantis, Chair. We have a quorum. Second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of December 2nd, 2015. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
That's Nick Malason?
Vincent.
I have a motion by Member Vincent Laurie. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Joseph Lavalley. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. The third item is a public hearing notice of intent Global Companies. Global did not get the ad of the public hearing in the paper, so we'll delay that once again to the February 3rd meeting. Public hearing request for amendment, DEP file number 0610520 by Baystone Revere LLC for 526 Revere Beach Boulevard, a 234-unit apartment complex. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
A motion.
That was by Nick. Excuse me? Oh, Jim, okay. Nick was looking at me.
Nick will second it.
Okay, I have a motion by James Cerboni, second by Nick Malason, to open the public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Rick, you going to present first, or Jim, or Ray, whoever wants to?
Thank you, Mr.
Press
Chairman.
the button.
Am I good? I'm green.
I think you're good. You're green. Yep.
Members of the commission, for the record, my name is Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance. Here this evening on behalf of Baystone Revere LLC, who is the new property owner of the subject property and also the applicant. Some representatives from Baystone are here, Roy McDowell and Eric Swenson, as well as myself and Attorney Cipolletta. So you folks may remember this particular site. It's the Ocean Club site, former Ocean Club site, which is directly adjacent to CG Towers, located right over here. This was originally permitted back in, I think it was 2006, on the DEP file number 061-0520. Our firm had done the permitting at that point in time. That project, as you may recall, was a 13-story high-rise with 252 condominium units, 434 parking spaces, and a footprint area including an underground, I think it was a 3-level parking garage consisting of 61,770 square feet. The project was then amended in 2012 on behalf of the lender that had taken the property back from the prior property owner. And at that point in time, it was re-permitted. It was downsized from a 13-story high-rise to a 5-story apartment building. I think actually at that point in time, I don't think whether it was going to be apartment or condominium had been determined. This project that's currently before you this evening is very similar to the 2012 amendment, as this particular proposal consists of 2 levels of parking located underneath the building, but not underground. So underneath the building, similar to, say, the Vanguard building that's further down the beach that was probably most recently before this commission, with 5 stories of wood frame construction above it, and 234 apartment units, with a total footprint slight increase to 64,018 square feet and 359 parking spaces. This aerial figure here kind of puts things in perspective for you a little bit. Revere Beach Boulevard located right here, Seaview Towers right here, North Shore Road behind us. The resource areas that are present on site this is considered a barrier beach, although it's sort of lost its function as a barrier beach with the construction of Revere Beach Boulevard and North Shore Road, which sort of landlocks it now. There's a salt marsh located to the rear of the property, which creates a 100-foot buffer zone, excuse me, which I'll show you in a moment. And also the resource area known as land subject to coastal storm flowage, which, as you know, is the 100-year floodplain, which in this particular case, under the current effective map, is elevation 8, and under the pending map that will become effective in March 16th of this year, will be between elevation 11 and 12, depending if you're looking at the front of the property or the rear of the property. Take a look at this existing conditions plan. The current 100-year floodplain is shown in this blue line that's here and here. The whole middle of the site is outside of that particular resource area. And the red line here is the 100-foot buffer zone that's associated with the salt marsh, which is at the rear of the property back here. Good.
Sorry, I don't see how the footprint is outside the 100-year floodplain.
I've portions of the footprint are in it. I'm just saying, for purposes of the existing conditions plan, the limit of the 100-year floodplain is here and this area in here. If you look at the elevations in the front portion of the site up here, it's outside of the 100-year floodplain. It's elevation 13 at the back of sidewalk on Revere Beach Boulevard.
So only a portion of the site is outside?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that we are working outside of it. We're most certainly working within that resource area. Traveling through the middle of the site, or the back third of the site, is an existing sewer line, which, as part of the prior project, the majority of it was reconstructed towards the rear of the property. It has not yet been connected to the mains on either side of it, but that would happen as part of this particular construction. And all the water, sewer, and gas during the Revere Beach Boulevard improvements, the prior projects had coordinated with DCR during that construction, so all those utilities are already stubbed onto the property, so there's no need to bring those particular lines in. We take a look at the proposed site plan. The site is accessed by 2 ways. There's an access point in the front of the building here, which gets you to a surface parking lot right here, and also an entranceway into the upper tray of parking. And there's also a driveway which grades down to the rear of the property, which provides access to some more surface spaces and a rear entrance to the garage, which would get you to that lower tray of parking. That lower tray of parking is located at elevation 3. The upper tray of parking is located at elevation 14. To your point, you'll see, actually, if I flip to the next sheet here, that the front portions of those buildings, in this particular here, these areas here are located outside of that floodplain, whereas these areas here are all within that floodplain. As you know, land subject to coastal storm flowage is considered a coastal floodplain, and under the Wetlands Protection Act, there are no performance standards for working within land subject to coastal storm flowage. As far as stormwater is concerned, stormwater flow that reaches this rear parking lot here by this ramp is captured in a typical deep sump catch basin with a hooded outlet. Discharges to CDS, water quality unit, then to a pump chamber where it's pumped to a 400-foot-long subsurface 36-inch perforated pipe surrounding an envelope of crushed stone in an effort to promote groundwater recharge. And that particular pipe will be equipped with an emergency overflow structure. We'll have a weir structure and a catch basin here that'll discharge back into the closed drainage system located within Revere Beach Boulevard.
While you're on that subject, if you don't mind, I have a couple of questions about that. Deep sump catch basins, the water table here is very high. So how are you going to get treatment through deep sump catch basins on this site?
The catch basins that are going to be installed, you're right, the water table is this parking lot's elevation 3 to 4, and that water table in there, we expect to be around 2 to 3. So they will be in water, but all these structures are going to be waterproof structures. They're not perforated structures. They're precast, waterproof structures, so there will be no...
How do they ultimately drain, I guess is my question.
Oh, it gets pumped up to this facility.
All right, so there's a pump station. So if you're looking at, if you want to just point out on your footprint, you handed out some architectural renderings, and on one of the pages, it's rear view to bay, which is actually a view to the Pines River. And there's a pump station there which is culverted out to the Pines River. So can you point out where on the site?
This particular pump station, there'll be a trench drain located right here.
I'm talking
CDS
about
unit.
this right here. Show me the location of this feature on your plan.
Oh, that's... That particular feature is on the other side of the salt marsh, up against North Shore Road.
Okay, so that's
Way off
outside
our-
the boundary of the...
Outside of our
okay.
property line. Yeah, it's on
Okay.
somebody else's property.
All right.
Just to explain this one more time, this surface water gets captured in the deep sump, discharged to a water quality treatment unit, discharged to a pump chamber, where it's pumped up to the top, where we'll have an opportunity to infiltrate it.
Okay. One other question, if you don't mind.
Nope.
Bear with me. So you're referring to standard 2 peak rate attenuation.
Correct.
In your submittal, okay? You're saying that although the standard's not required for coastal projects, in most storm events, these systems will retain and infiltrate all stormwater generated on site. This conflicts with what you just told me. You said it will infiltrate on site. You told me it will not infiltrate.
I'm sorry, let me try to explain it again. It doesn't infiltrate back here where there is a high water table, which is correct.
So where
Which
does
is
it-
why we're pumping it up to here, and it infiltrates in this facility that's located here at the front of the site.
And so where's the water table at that location?
Oh, this particular facility is way up at elevation 13,
And
and the
where's-
water table is down at 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 or 3.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, the roof runoff will be discharged in this third of the building over here, discharged into a 24-inch perforated pipe to get some groundwater infiltration there. That facility is up at about elevation 7, with the groundwater table at 2. And that roof system is also equipped with overflows at grade should the roof system and storm in excess of 100-year storm come, and it discharges out the rear towards the salt marsh.
Okay, one more question about standard 2. In the event the system capacity exceeded, the stormwater will overflow to the closed drainage system located within Revere Beach Boulevard.
Correct.
So, it may not be a requirement. I don't know, was there a MEPA submittal for this project?
There was a MEPA submittal for this.
In your ENF cert, did they ask you to evaluate climate change, resiliency, adaptation?
Yeah, there was a certificate that was already issued for this project Since we're downsizing the project, we've submitted for a notice of project change, and that's currently under review.
Okay, because the concern I have is that in the event the system capacity exceeded, I see that, potentially a likely scenario in some cases. How is that going to impact the closed drainage system on Revere Beach Boulevard?
It's a positive impact, and the reason why it's a positive impact is because any increase that we have in the rates of runoff is directed towards the rear, towards the salt marsh. There is actually a net decrease to the stormwater that's discharged back towards Revere Beach Boulevard, so there's a net improvement to that drainage system. Because we're capturing these flows coming off this front area in these catch basins here, which used to discharge right out onto the boulevard across the sidewalk, those flows will now be captured, and the front roof area that used to discharge back towards the boulevard gets discharged out the back now. So there's actually a net decrease headed towards the closed drainage system and the DCR system.
Great, thank you.
To the chair. Hi. I was listening carefully, and I don't know if you answered my first question.
Sure.
I noticed it says here that during flooding events, the pump system from the garage floor drains will be turned off in order to prevent storm water flow from being discharged into the municipal sewer system.
Correct.
And at what point would the pumps go back on, when the sewer system can handle the capacity?
That's right. Actually, we'll be working with DPW with that. I don't think that the DPW is going to want any stormwater discharged into the sewer. We're not talking about a storm event that happening. We're talking about the catastrophic 100-year storm event. So we're talking about a flood that would be up to elevation 12 or 13, so that would put this site, as it exists in its current condition, would be under about 8 feet of water. Okay,
And at that point, I'm wondering what the condition of the water would be at that point, owing that there's a parking lot full of automobiles in there, too.
Well, the automobiles would not be in there. They would be evacuated from the garage, and then that stormwater would be discharged out. Like I said, this isn't an everyday storm event. I mean, the city of every coastal community around here, that's a catastrophic situation.
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe it as catastrophic. 100-year storms don't occur every 100 years. In fact, data suggests that they likely occur now twice, 2 times every 100 years. So it's not necessarily a catastrophic storm as you're describing it.
Well, to hit that 100-year floodplain elevation is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about necessarily the 100-year storm event. I'm talking about the flooding reaching the 100-year floodplain level as shown on the FEMA map, which are technically 2 different things, right? Because your 100-year storm is about 7 inches of rain that has to fall within a 24-hour period.
Right, but
Whereas
is it based on the most recent data and best available science?
Yeah, and well, even if you looked at like the Cornell method, so that's using NRCS, suggests it's about 7 inches in 24 hours. If you use the Cornell method, which probably puts it up to about 12 or 13 inches in 24 hours, I can't think of a time in recent history where we had 12 inches of rain that fell within a 24-hour period, and it has to fall at that intensity to be the 100-year storm. But I think the differentiating factor here is the elevation, and that's why I say it would be catastrophic. If we have floodwaters, that means North Shore Road is, if you go by the elevation 12, North Shore Road is probably under 7 or 8 feet of water. And that's why I say it's a catastrophic event. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that this isn't like a normal storm event that happens that we end up with water in the garage. It would have to be a 100-year floodplain elevation event.
That's also described as a 1% storm.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
it's a 1% chance of that storm occurring, but
That's right.
storm intensity, and people can debate climate change and intensity of storm events, but Woods Hole Group just completed a study for Boston Harbor, which indicates that, and they predict their predictions for 2070, only 50-plus years from now, which shows inundation of coastal communities in Boston Harbor that's soon to be published, modeling for inundation within infrastructure within Boston Harbor, and I would expect Revere would be susceptible to that as well. But I know that's not our jurisdiction under the Wetland Protection Act. That's more of a MEPA issue for you. If it's in your cert, and I expect it would be.
Yeah, this particular project, last time around, was a single ENF. It did not require an EIR.
You all said,
Lavelle?
I didn't want to interrupt you when you were doing your presentation, but can you tell me what's different between the project that you're presenting now and the 2012? You just highlight the major areas? Or basically everything about the same?
They're about the same. Relative to impact, this is very similar. The 2012 project was very different from the 2005 project. This is very similar to the 2012 project. It's a smaller project. It's a 5-story wood frame parking under the building. That was a 5-story wood frame parking under the building. Very similar footprint, very similar configuration. Stormwater was handled in a very similar fashion.
And so why is the need of an amendment?
Because it is, in fact, a different plan. So the footprint is a slightly different shape. Stormwater features are in slightly different.
What about the
locations.
elevation for the parking and everything? Same?
The elevation for the parking is a little bit lower on this plan than the other plan, but like I said, if you're, standing from where you are now, and I didn't bring the 2012 plan, if you looked at the 2012 plan, the building might be, a slightly different configuration. I think this corner was cut out, and perhaps this corner was cut out over here, but it was a very similar plan.
I'm sorry, but from what I read in your submission, the amendment is more than just because it's a different construction plan, different design. You're requesting a change in the determination of it being a barrier beach.
No, that was still there.
Okay.
That hasn't changed.
Okay, so you're not requesting,
No, that determination was already made. That was the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, as you know, when we get to the end of this process, assuming that the amendment were to pass, we would get a new order of conditions. This plan would become the plan of record. Once construction is complete, we've got to prepare an as-built plan, and we have to make sure that that as-built plan as part of our certificate of compliance process exactly matches the plan that we present this evening. So for all the little nuances that are in this plan is why we're here for an amendment, just to make sure everything is identical at the end of the process.
can I just ask, why did you feel it necessary to call out that DEP classifies it as a barrier beach, but dense development severely limits the natural barrier beach functions normally associated with that? Why did you feel it necessary to call that out?
Because it really doesn't, because of the development, way back in 2005, when this went through the MEPA process, that was the same determination that CZM came to, and all the state agencies. Even though it is technically considered a barrier beach, it really doesn't function as a barrier beach anymore because of the dense development and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, there's been a big discussion with CZM and DEP about barrier beaches going back to Waterfront Square, that whole development along Ocean Ave, where everything was paved, even less of a beach wetlands.
I know it's not maybe so much in the purview of the Conservation Commission, but did you want, since Roy's here, do you want him to run through the building itself and the way it's
Up to the Conservation Commission, would you like to hear the presentation on the building?
Yeah, I did have one comment on the rendering. And if you want to talk about any LID.
Go right ahead, Mr. McDowell.
Specifically, one of the renderings shows the sidewalk adjacent to Revere Beach Boulevard.
Yeah, and I think for the benefit of the television audience, it'd be good to have that
Sure.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. For the benefit of the commission and the audience, my name is Roy McDowell. I am here to represent Baystone Revere LLC, a divisional company of Baystone Development. So I did give you a package this evening, which is very similar to what I'm about to show you here. So if you have any questions, we can kind of flip through this. These are our architects, I'll call them artist renderings at this point. They're obviously not finished drawings, but they're very close. And we've had a couple of meetings with the Site Plan Review Committee, and we've tweaked these plans based on meetings with them. And Frank Stringy and Councilor Powers has had a number of comments, and we've taken those into consideration also. What you'll notice is, on a frontal view, this is the beach across the street. This is Revere Beach Boulevard. And as Rick had mentioned, there's one level of parking below and one level above grade. And that's going to be all screened and heavily landscaped, so you're not really going to be looking at a garage. We'll have some kind of screening materials in the facade of the building. We're going to be having some facade materials on the concrete structure itself, so you're not just looking at a bland concrete structure. You'll notice almost all of the units have balconies facing the ocean, and they're quite large balconies. We have a lot of glass, full-size sliding doors with transoms of glass above. We have very large windows in the units themselves. They're anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5 feet tall, so there's a lot of glass. You know, our feeling was that if you've got the fantastic views, not only to the east, but to the west, which is unusual. I mean, it's one of the few buildings, I think, on the beach that actually can see water from almost all sides. So we felt that was very beneficial. So you'll see, this is the Sea View Towers over here. The building, is, you'll see as we go through, is sort of a shape of an E. Again, as I go, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I do. I was a little confused on where the DCR jurisdiction lies on that rendering. It looks like there's a car angled parked out front.
Actually, it's a car pulling in. There's a driveway there. Yes, you couldn't park like that. You could park like that 40 years ago, but not now.
Yeah, and the landscaping, where does the DCR property end?
Let me go right to that page.
Okay.
So this is Revere Beach Boulevard here. The sidewalk is quite wide. It varies anywhere from 16 to 18 feet. And the Revere Beach Boulevard DCR property is right on the back edge of the sidewalk, within a foot. So our understanding and our design is, this is where you saw that car. So it's sort of parked right here as it was pulling in. This is an area here for reservations for people coming to do for leasing and checking in. You'll drive through here in the garage. This is where you drive into the rear of the garage. This is actually a rooftop terrace here above the garage, which has 3 levels. There's a 0 level, 2-foot elevation level, and a 4-foot elevation level, 4 foot being where the pool is. So that pool would be about 3.5 feet deep through here. So you've got paving around the pool, sitting area here. Of course, this is all viewing to the ocean, to the beach. So that we have sitting areas here, sitting areas here. This section here is common amenity space. So you have gymnasium, you have sitting areas, lounge areas, theater room inside the building, all either looking at the ocean or looking at the pool area.
Is there any opportunity for LID treatment, rooftop treatment, to minimize roof runoff, the need for roof runoff treatment?
Well, we are doing a rooftop terrace right here, and so there could be some possibilities for some planting and drip irrigation, picking up some of the roof. We're looking into those ideas now.
And so the trees you have represented there on the rendering, those would be planted and maintained by DCR?
We'll plant them. I'm sure they'll probably want to maintain them. For whatever reason, if they don't, it's in our self-interest to make sure we maintain them, because we want to put some 3.5, 4-inch caliber trees out here. These are all honey locusts, picking up on theme what's out there now. And we have gotten our DCR permit to enter into the property and do work here. So I'll go back and just run you through the rendering. So This is a frontal view here. This gives you a view of the various sides of the building. Again, this is the front here. You'll see the pool, the building itself. A lot of these units are looking either at the ocean or the pool area itself. This gives you another frontal view looking out to the ocean. This is where you're driving in right here in the front leasing area is right here. This is a rear view. So picture this is the northern part of the site. This is where you'd come down to the rear, come into the lower level of the garage. And again, this is all good views to the west. This gives you a good, you all know this area obviously very well, but just for demonstration purposes, this blue area right here is our site. This blue line is actually the blue line itself. And you'll notice the projects that are being built down here now, they have great views of the ocean, but in the rear, they either look at land, rooftops, or parking lots. This is rather unique in that it's got water views on both sides. Again, a little larger detail of the site itself. There was one little corner we acquired over here from Mr. Lasden to square up the site. Again, the landscape plan. And this is a representative sample of some of the flowering colors, whether it be the trees, the ground cover, some of the perennials, things that we really want to have a lot of color in the site. We want to have it multiple seasons of the year, whether it's changing color in the foliage of trees or perennial summer color, because our goal is to have this as one of the nicest projects on Revere Beach Boulevard. So we want to make sure, we also own a landscape architectural company, so we want to make sure the landscaping is something special. The exterior detailing of the buildings is something special. And frankly, have something that we're all proud of. Now, just to give you a little view of, we actually went over to Seaview Towers, and actually, before I do that, this is the footprint of the building itself. So you can see the shape of the building here. This area here, which is that rooftop terrace, is over 10,000 square feet. So it's a very large area for outdoor use, and you're just slightly above beach level, so you get great views of the ocean. This area right here is an amenities area inside the building. Again, gym area, fitness, dining, sit-down areas for people, gathering areas, theater room, billiards area, just general gatherings. So again, we've been fortunate to look at some of the other projects as they're being built, studied some of the competition's plans to make sure we go one step beyond. We just really like it to be special. Now these pictures have not been doctored from color point of view. This just happened the day we were there. This here, again, from Seaview Towers is shooting south. You've got Winthrop out in this direction. This is the blue line in this direction here. So you can see the view of the beach here, looking south. This is another view of the beach looking north. We've got Nahant over here. And we're right here. See, I mean, look at the vista. And if you happen to live in the backside of the building, not such a terrible view. Again, a water view, which we think is nice. So we think this property is rather unique from the terms of visuals. I think it's in a great location. I think it's in an area of the city that's really emerging in a very special way. And we look forward to the opportunity of building this project and hopefully doing further things in Revere.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on,
Member
you brought
Lillian?
up aesthetics, and I was curious what the exterior of the building is going to have for a covering. Various buildings on the beach have stood up well, others have not. They're dealing with a rather treacherous environment with the salt water and everything. And I was just curious what the outside, the facade of the building is going to be made out of.
That's a very good question. It will not be stucco.
All right, so you're reading my mind a bit.
Yeah, or some friends like to kid around, it's not a styrofoam cup. So what we're doing is, it's mostly, one of the things, obviously, aesthetics is very important. But the other thing that's very important is long-term maintenance, long-term durability, because if you don't build a project well in the beginning, you pay for it later, and it can eat you alive. So what we're doing on all the siding on the exterior of this building will be cementitious products, which means if this is looking like clapboards, it's really gonna be made out of cement. Probably have a sub-inch exposure. We've got panels up here with architectural detailing. Those panels will be made out of cementitious materials also. Where we have areas, broad areas like this, that will probably be an AZAC type material. Again, something that's not gonna rot, something that's not gonna peel. You know, frankly, we just want it to be a maintenance-free building that aesthetically is very attractive.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. McDowell.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to this project? Councilor Powers?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I am here tonight to speak in favor of this project. And that's not something I normally do when it comes to apartments. I've been opposed to several projects, one down at the boatyard and the Shaw site, that involved taking commercial property and turning it into residential property, and I wasn't happy with that. I saw some of the projects that were built over in Chelsea by One North. I went over and looked at them, and I wasn't happy. This project here, aesthetically, I think adds an awful lot to the beach. An awful lot of glass on the front of the building, which is great. The balconies are great. They're not tiny balconies. They're more or less full balconies. And the other thing that really sold me is that I spoke with the building inspector. I spoke with Frank Stringy, who I have a lot of confidence in, and the city engineer, Mr. Rystrom, and they all seem to like the plan. They like the developer. They've looked at some of the things that he's done before. I had meetings in the building next door, Seaview Towers, 2 meetings within probably a 45-day period. At the last meeting, a good majority of the residents, and every resident in that building was invited, every owner, raised their hands in support of this. Would they like to see condominiums there? They would, no question about it. However, this is zoned RC1. What the developer is proposing is allowed by law, apartments. The good news is that I believe only 67 of them are going to be 2-bedroom apartments. The rest are 1-bedroom and studios, which I would imagine would be catering to young urban professionals who have a desire to live on the beach and be reasonably close to the transportation. How does that benefit the city of Revere? Well, first of all, the project itself, we've done the numbers, and I believe the tax on it, the real estate tax, is upwards of $600,000 a year. Okay. We've got a fire station down the Point of Pines that's closed. Is this money going to go to open that fire station? I can't say that. But I say, you know, you do need money to open the fire station. That cost, after speaking with the fire chief, is probably around $800,000 a year. I think with Parcel H and the North Lot coming online, the density of those projects down there, I think that station will have to be opened at some point. There'll be no saying no to opening that station. It's going to be a necessity. We had a fire last evening over in Beachmont, Dolphin Avenue down that area, North Shore Road, right on the Beachmont line, Shirley Avenue area. Okay, when you have a fire like that, you know, you get mutual aid into the city. But Engine 4, Ladder 1, Engine 5, which services the Point of Pines, all go out on a fire of that nature. And the only thing you have really left covering the city is ladder 2 up on Broadway and engine 3 up in North Revere, and that certainly is not enough if someone's having a medical emergency. Particularly in the high-rises on the boulevard, if someone's having a medical emergency, it's not only the response time to the address, it's getting in the building, going up on the elevator, waiting for the elevator, getting up to that person, which is more time consumed. Again, as I said before, something is going to go there. You can't just let a piece of property sit there. So what you do, I believe, is to try to get the best possible development down there. The Ocean Club was a great development. I supported that 100%. The previous development I wasn't too crazy about, prior to the one in between. This one here, I like. Okay. I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and I spoke in favor of this because there were two zoning changes on the front and the rear of the building. This building here, even with those zoning changes, has a better development, I think, than the one down on Ocean Avenue. Ocean Avenue is built right out to the sidewalk. I don't like it. I talked to a lot of people in the city, they don't like it. This here, you're going to have on the front of the building probably a minimum of 10-foot setbacks off the rear of the sidewalk. So to me, that makes sense. The parking is in place. In addition to the $600,000 a year in real estate taxes, it's also going to benefit the businesses down there, a place like Antonia's, a place like Renzo's, any other businesses that may open down there, because you get young people coming in that have disposable income. If they can rent down here and pay the rents, then they do have disposable income to service those businesses. So that's a good thing. One of the things I've suggested to the developer, and this will come up at site plan review, that the building be set up so that it can be converted to condos down the road. Let's say the rental market falls through tomorrow and the condo market comes back. And we saw that with the St. George. When it was first built, you could buy a condo in there for $60,000, $70,000. You can't do that today. They're all $300,000 and up. So that's one of the things I'd like to see down there, and that'll be discussed at site plan review. The other thing is that the sewer line on the back of the building, I know there's an easement there that was put in place. On the plan I have here in my, it shows a 12-inch sewer line. I think as the city engineer will speak about at the site plan review meeting, that needs to be increased, probably to at least an 18-inch sewer line. Reason being that you have J&G Towing, you have Jacob's Ladder site, you have the boatyard where something is going to be built. You have to take into consideration the future development down in the Point of Pines area and along the boulevard. We did that when we redid the pump station at a cost of over $1 million a couple of years ago. Used to have 2 pumps. One was always breaking down. It has 3 pumps now. 2 of them operate, and one on, one off, and the other one is a reserve. So that's all covered. And I really think that the sewerage down there is going to be important because there are a lot of homes down in that area that have basements, playrooms. They have a basement apartment. It's been there for years. It's more or less grandfathered in. So I think we have to make sure that the people down there are not impacted. There's a brand new water line that was put in when DCR redid the boulevard a few years back, maybe 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And that's adequate for any future development down there. So again, I'm supporting this this evening. I've had meetings down at the Seaview Towers. All of the people were not at the meetings, but there was a good group of people, and the great majority, I would say at least 90% of them, were in favor of this project. Would they like to see a nice park there or something, and does Commonwealth give us maybe $1 million a year in local aid extra to compensate for that land? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We're faced in the city right now with the possibility, a strong possibility of building a brand-new high school. It's going to have to be bonded. You only get so much money from the state. We're paying down the debt on 5 schools that we recently bonded. We have a lot of other projects out there. We have the infrastructure with our water and sewer system that's going on now that's going to cost millions and millions of dollars. That has to come from somewhere. So the only place you're going to get that money is from development. I favor commercial development. I know the trailer park, Overlease Trailer Park, that may be gone soon. There's an outfit that's already committed $100,000 in non-refundable deposits to the owners of the land over there, and they've got to come up with another $300,000 before the end of December of 16. Perfect spot for a hotel. If that happens, we'll get a 6% room excise tax. We get the 0.75% on the meals tax if it's a full-service hotel. Wonderland, I had a meeting today with Wonderland. I'm looking to have that whole area down there cleaned up, and we're going to do it. That piece of building in back of where that tractor trailer is parked on North Shore Road, the uses it for advertising. That's coming out of there within the next 2 weeks. And we've got going into the building, and we're going to see if we can get that building raised. So there's a lot of good things happening in the city. But again, would I love to see condominiums down there? Yes, I would. Is this a good project? Yes, it is. I think it's the best project that's out there right now for that area. And again, my main concern will be making sure that that sewerage line is intact there, because we spent probably $600,000 when I first got elected 16 years ago to reline that whole sewer line there. We've got a brand new pump station down in Point of Pines, so we're trying to get things done. We spent $900,000 down on Oak Island, on Argyle, Elton, York, and Arcadia Streets. So we're working on sewage and drainage, and we want to see that work is kept up, and the other fellows that can do that by, making sure that everything is put in the right place down there. And I have all the faith in the world in the developers here. I think they'll do a good job. Really.
Thank you, Councilor Powers.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, just something that Councilor Powers mentioned, and I just wanted to ask the developer. You mentioned about the setbacks. There's an optical illusion here where no, not just that. The long glasses, the long windows. Yeah. On the first 2 renderings that you have here, it looks almost as though it goes right to the beginning of the sidewalk. And yet, on another one, way over here, I see shrubs in front of it.
That's a plant.
The problem one to look at is the landscape plan. Again, that's an artist's rendition, scale it properly, but this is really the look.
Okay, so at no place on the whole profile is the building up to the sidewalk. Is that? Thank you. That's.
It varies anywhere from 10 to 16 feet.
Thank you.
If I, again, Roy McDowell, if I could clarify one item, which I think is important. Councilor Powers did bring up the sewer line. The sewer line was in fact, I think, a 12-inch or, no, original. Because there was a brand-new sewer line that was put in by the previous developer, and I believe the current sewer line with new manholes going through our entire site is in fact an 18-inch line.
But through your site, you mean perpendicular or going down North Shore Road? Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Okay, so that's 18-inch. And that, how long does that extend?
that's the entire length of our site.
I'm thinking beyond, Councilor Powers mentioned other developments needing that 18-inch diameter capacity for future development needs as well.
Well, you would, except that I know Mr. Laston has been having discussions about possibly in the future developing something in his site. He would have to, in fact, relocate his sewer line. Our current sewer line goes through the middle of the site. That's the reason why the new sewer line was put in the back end of the site. He would have to do the same thing at a future point in time, not only relocate his sewer line, but change it to an 18-inch also, which his site is quite long.
Reason I brought that up, this shows there, the easement shows 12. So I don't know if. Where's that line from? I mean, this is,
Oh, that's an old plan.
yeah, this is when they granted the easement, so it shows 12, so.
Yeah, I have actually physically seen it. I can show you.
It used to be a 12 all along that section of the boulevard. When Carabetta built Seaview Towers, he put in 15-inch from behind Jack Satter House up to Seaview Towers. So then you've got the 18-inch on your piece. Downstream it's 15-inch plastic, which can flow more sewer because it's smoother than the clay or even the concrete. That's the 18-inch on your site. Upstream, going towards the Point of Pines, I believe is still 12-inch.
Let's see, I think it runs from 600 Boulevard, it's a gravity flows back to the pump station, then it comes out on 4th.
Well, part of it, yeah, but at this site, it's flowing towards Revere Street. Yeah, it's further toward north on the boulevard that it flows back to the Point of Pines, and then it pumps down to it. From Revere Street down through Seaview Towers. When Seaview Towers was built, the city got a grant to pay for a 24-inch sewer down there. So there's still pieces that need to be done, you know, but this will take care of one piece. Anybody else in the audience would like to speak on this? Sir, take the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Mark Curry, 510 Revere Beach Boulevard, apartment 1008, we're in Seaview Towers. Just a couple of small points. Most of the residents are concerned about traffic is the biggest issue here. It's difficult getting on the beach.
Sir,
Yeah.
this is Conservation Commission, wetland issues.
All right, so on the wetland issue,
The
okay.
only thing we can
Okay, very good. On the
do
wetland
anything about
issue-
is wetland issues. We can't do anything about traffic.
Okay. On the wetland issue, I guess the only question I have is on the elevation of the building. The property floods frequently that they're building on, what the elevation is for the lower garage.
Yeah, you weren't here for Rick
missed the
Salvo's
first part.
presentation where he spoke to that it will flood in the garage. There's no question about it.
It will?
Oh, yes, it definitely will.
So I guess the question becomes is what do you do with the cars?
They'll have to remove the cars when there is advance notice of a large storm coming along.
But that's only anticipated during 100-year storm events.
My 10 years over there, we've had a problem about 4 times.
Yeah,
And
but keep in
that
mind,
property more
the garage is going to be essentially at grade. It's not going to be
Right now, it's
below
depressed.
grade.
Right now, it's at the same level as Seaview's. And
Okay.
half of that property would flood on at least 2 or 3 times a winter.
Do the engineers want to speak to that a little bit?
But could I get your apartment number again? I missed it.
1008.
1008. Thank you.
I think part of the reason for the flooding that occurred. Actually, I guess, let me just clarify the question first.
So you've got 1.75 spaces per unit? Yes. So you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose 1. You're likely to lose that grade during that 2 or 3 times a year.
Where are we talking, where are you talking about flooding issues occurring? Are you talking about flooding issues that occur on this property or flooding issues that occur on Seaview Towers property?
It happens on this, it's shown on there.
That's right. And that will cease to happen. So what happens is, Anyone that's been to this site right now, it's a bowl. There's no way for the water to get out of it. There were several houses there, right? I think there was 8 house lots there. They were all developed house lots. And once those houses were demolished, the cellar holes created a big void in the middle of the property. So he's right. So stormwater that comes across here that floods that property now and has no way to get out. Once this building is built and this is landscaped around here, those floodwaters won't have an opportunity to get in and flood that parking garage, and it'll drain out towards the back of the property, towards the marsh.
That's how I'm talking about. You couldn't, where it's going on, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Where it's going on, you can't really tell because of all the grass and this growing in there. I'm talking about when the houses were there, it was paved. The first 2 properties, it was 3/4 of the lot, the backyard. So I guess the only question becomes is, if you're building on that, you're going down to that level, the expectation is you're gonna lose the parking on the lower level.
The expectation is we're all gonna lose the parking on the lower level in the storm events that this salt marsh floods and overflows this way into either Seaview Towers parking lot or this particular parking lot.
Right, and also it's historically 2 to 4 times a year.
Well, when you say 2 to 4 times a year, is it rainwater catching in the parking lot of Seaview Towers?
Winter storms.
Winter storms, water's coming either in from the river or from the ocean?
Are we talking about water that's coming from the boulevard down, or that's coming from the back? From the back. Yeah, and are we talking that Seaview Towers is under 3 or 4 feet of water in the back?
No.
We're talking a puddle, right?
We're talking, your property had probably a foot. We had a puddle.
That's right, yeah. And this property, right now, if you look at the state that it's in, it's not in any kind of graded condition. There's a low point in the middle of it, and that's gonna get replaced with the building, so that surface water isn't gonna have the opportunity to land there and collect there.
Yeah, the elevation will increase, bottom line.
Raising the elevation of the.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, the question.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I guess just one other point that I just want to bring up, and then I know we're probably deliberating this a little longer than maybe you wanted to, but I just wanted to point out the fact that, you know, this project has been going on for quite a long time. This is obviously our 3rd time back here. I think the differences that we have is, you know, perhaps the first developer may have been a little bit too ambitious with the project that he undertook. The second time that it was brought before this commission, it wasn't a developer that was intending to build it. It was for the lender that owned it, that was looking to market it, to sell it. I'm hoping that this is very strong chance that this is the last time we're back here unless there's a tweak to this particular plan, because now you have a developer that's a proven developer that owns the property now and is slated to go to construction this spring. So this project, you know, looks like it's going to finally be a reality and be constructed, and hopefully we won't be back before you with yet another plan.
Thanks, Rick. What's the will of the commission on this?
I'll motion to approve the amendment.
Issue an amended order of conditions?
I second it.
Who's that, Vin?
Nick.
Oh, Nick. I'll get you right one of these days. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted. Signature?
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. So that makes the request for extension moot, is agreed with the proponent, so we won't even take that up. So adjournment. Have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
By
I second
James.
it.
Second
That's
by
Nick.
Nick.
Yes, sir.
Got it right that time. All those in favor? Approved. Next meeting will be February 3rd at 7 o'clock.